Hi folks, look at this box right here. People of a certain age, we might remember those ads. They're car ads from the 70s, and the guy would say, look at this car right here. Anyway, must have just been a 70s thing. So all my weirdness is gone. No, not that. But let's look at some comic books instead. So this is M-A-R to T-H, which Mephisto is the first thing in there. So much for alphabet. That's okay. So these first three are Mephisto versus the Fantastic Four, X-Men. Have two of those, and Mephisto versus the Avengers. And there's obviously a fourth issue in here, but I can't remember who the second one was. I don't know if it would necessarily have to be a team. It would make sense considering the other three are teams, but I don't know. Anyway, this is Ms. Marvel. This was from the 70s. She had her series, and I believe that this is actually the last issue of the series. And I think I do have other issues of Ms. Marvel elsewhere. I just don't know offhand where they are.
So. Eventually to become Captain Marvel.
Yeah, she became Captain Marvel, and yeah, so this is Carol Danvers, but it's interesting the number of changes that characters go through. She's been.
It could be in the box that we did the other night that was exactly the same as this one so far.
Maybe. Oh, this is that one. That one was ended prematurely. So that.
Oh,
one,
is that the one that you had to cut off?
That was when we stopped. So I'm doing it again. So yes. So yeah, this is actually volume 2 of this one. So this is New X-Men. And this is when Grant Morrison took over the title and started writing, I think, with issue 114. And I remember liking this a lot, but I think there were some X-Men fans who weren't too crazy about it because it wasn't, it wasn't the X-Men that they knew. But because I wasn't necessarily a big fan of the X-Men, to me, it was just something interesting and new. And Grant Morrison's always coming up with cool ideas. So to me, this was a really interesting series. Your mileage may vary depending on how big an X-Men fan you are, probably how old you are too. So I appreciated it. So that's 120. That first one was 119. So I have a whole bunch of these. These are all through the 120s. And I'm just going to kind of like gloss over this a little bit because I don't want the video to get too long. That's 126. First year, 112, 114 to 126. So here's 127. I guess this is year 2. And then 131, and they kind of turned them into like, it was like, I think they were like seen as reality TV show people after a time, but now we skip ahead to 132, and I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I don't remember as well as I would like to the series itself, but that's 135, and there's 136, so here's 137, so this is 143, 144, so that just keeps going on. And then eventually Grant Morrison gave way to Chuck Austen, and I think the interest in the title subsided after Grant Morrison was gone, but it was a pretty cool run while he was there. So here's 154, and if that's the last issue of Grant Morrison, that means he did exactly 40 issues on the title, so that seems a good number. Yeah, there's 155. Chuck Austen is the writer now. And that's 156. So as I said, I think that the attention had waned a little bit after Grant Morrison was there, but for a time it was an interesting title, so worth getting. And this is Nightcrawler. This is an Icon miniseries by Kipiniak appears to be the name, but it's number 1, so maybe there's some interest in that. But if you're interested in Nightcrawler or New X-Men, by all means, let me know. Here is Nova. This is Nova volume. This is either volume 2 or volume 3. But so there was an earlier series in the 70s for sure. I can't remember if there was one before this. This is Power Man and Iron Fist, and actually, if you followed the Marvel TV shows, then you've seen these two characters. That's Iron Fist and Luke Cage.
They appeared in the TV show?
Yeah, they appeared in Daredevil, and then they appeared in the Defenders.
Huh.
So now here's the Ray. Once we had a conversation because Firestorm took place in Pittsburgh, and this takes place, I believe, in Philadelphia. So this is the original miniseries by Jack C. Harris with art by Joe Quesada, who eventually went on to become the Marvel EIC. So Joe Quesada was a pretty good artist in his own right.
Do they have any hoagies if they're taking place in Philadelphia?
I don't remember if they mentioned hoagies or not, but this did take place in Philly. So that's number 3, and that's number 4. Let's see, 5. So I have 2 through 5. I wish I had 1 and 6. I might have them elsewhere. And I seem to say that a lot, but unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to really fully alphabetize all the boxes, and I'm not a store, so it didn't really seem. I was just looking for a way to get these things boxed, as you can see by this incredibly professional box here. So, Ruins. I believe this was written by Warren Ellis, and I've mentioned him a number of times, and it's kind of an apocalyptic version of Marvel.
Did it have multiple different covers, or is that just light reflecting from it?
I think this is an acetate cover. I think if I were to take it out, the original page that says Ruins on it and the black frame peels away, and then the picture is under that still.
Huh.
So yeah, they did some neat stuff. This is Sandman, great series that Neil Gaiman wrote.
A Game of You.
Yeah, Game of You. So I'll I've mentioned some things going on with Neil Gaiman personally, and I'll just skip that because this is his seminal series, The Sandman. This is number 34, and it was really a well done series. I mean, 36, whatever personal issues he has.
Is A Game of You not the name of the series then?
No, the name of the series is Sandman. A Game of You is just a chapter. For lack of a better term.
Why is it multiple of the issues then?
Because often chapters will just have multiple parts.
Okay.
So that's 3 issues of Game of You. This is part 6 of A Game of You. So I have a bunch, and I have more Sandmans elsewhere. I'm just going to copyright that phrase.
What? I have more Sandmans elsewhere.
More copies of this book elsewhere. This is Savage Dragon, a book that I didn't really collect all that much, but I did pick up a couple. And this is well along. This is Savage Dragon 109. That's 110. So I do have a couple of issues of Savage Dragon 111. There's 112. So I have 4 issues of that. So yeah, this box you can see is kind of a smattering of stuff. So you get a good idea of what is available at the very least.
That's a hodgepodge.
Yep. This is Scorpio Rose, which...
That's a cool name.
Yeah. I can't remember who the artist of this is.
Looks like down at the bottom, it looks like it says Marshall.
Oh, then that might be Marshall Rogers, which is awesome because Marshall Rogers is great. So, all the more reason to get it. This is a miniseries, The Shadow and the Batman. It's the Comic-Con exclusive, New York Comic-Con, if that means anything to anyone. This is Sinestro. They had a whole thing in 52 Batman, or 52 DC, where Darwin Cook did a whole bunch of covers, and he was a really interesting artist, really great talent, and so he did a lot of variants, and this is one of the variants, Sinestro. So you can see he's quite imaginative and really interesting art style.
Which person?
Darwin Cook.
His name's not on the cover.
It's not signed, but it does say, I think down here, variant cover.
Oh, it does say Darwin Cook variant cover. Okay.
Yeah, so he did a bunch of those covers, and unfortunately, I believe that Darwin Cook has passed, which is a real loss in terms of, the comic book creativity. Not to mention the fact that any loss is a terrible loss, but just for the comic book community specifically, such a great talent, and he wasn't around, for a super long time, but I'm glad that we got what we did. This is Spider-Man Adventures. I think this was a book directed specifically at kids. Despite the perception of comic books being for kids, this one actually is, I think, directed at kids. Spider-Man versus the Scorpion, and I have 2 of those. Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man. This is an issue with Doctor Strange and Black Cat, and it's written by Peter David, so great stuff. Spectacular Spider-Man, I believe is written by J.M. DeMatteis, and looks like art by Sal Buscema. That's 169. 170, so I have a bunch of these. 177. This is The Child Within, featuring Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin, another storyline. 184. 185. J.M. DeMatteis was going for the humor part, and I'm not sure if it necessarily works, but they have a sarcastic editor's warning.
The story is funny on purpose. Beware.
So I'm not sure if it worked as well as Peter David did, because I think Peter David was more organic with his humor, but what do I know? So here's The Vulture, 186. 187. So, my cup of tea may not be yours, and if so, by all means, please, if you're interested in any of this stuff or you have any questions, let me know. Here's a nice, silver reflective cover for issue 200, so that's pretty cool, with the Green Goblin.
Oh, yeah.
A Hero Possessed. Crimson
Was
Death.
he Venom?
No, that's Crimson Death and the Shroud.
Yeah.
That's 208. So 213. I think I might be getting a little long, so I'm going to speed up. Tiger, do I have news for you? I believe that she was pregnant, but then they kind of like did away with that at the time.
They just undid it.
223. There was a lot of stuff going on in Marvel and Spider-Man specifically at the time. And eventually they did have a child who became Spider-Girl, and that was a great series. But that's not, I think, what happened in that particular instance.
Oh, okay.
So this is 249. Craven and Calypso. Craven was featured in his own movie, so for
Is Calypso Craven the Hunter's girlfriend or something?
Kind of, yeah. There's Craven again. And I thought that maybe some of these Craven issues would actually be worth something, but I don't think they are.
I've got a Craven for more Craven.
There you go. That's Spectacular number 10. Nice wordplay there. Spectacular Annual 11. Annual 12 featuring Venom. Because what good is a Spider-Man comic without Venom appearing?
Ha.
So this is the official index to Spider-Man. This is a book that tells you,
index.
Yeah, it tells you what issues came out, what year, and what month they were released, who the writer-artists were, who the characters were, and any other background information. So this is more of a text.
That was a good idea for them to do that.
Yeah,
though.
I think it was kind of cool. So this is more of a text piece of Spider-Man.
And it helps collectors keep like track of what was released and when.
Exactly.
How valuable things should be.
This is The Spirit by Will Eisner, and this is reprints from 1940s and 30s comic books or comic strips that were published in newspapers. And Will Eisner is one of the giants of the industry, there's no doubt. And they reprinted, I have others of these somewhere else, but he is also named an award named after him that you can win the Eisner Award at comic book award ceremonies, and it's a real honor. So then other artists and writers took their shot at Spirit, and of course you start with Alan Moore because he's great. So
Will Eisner was apparently looking to imitate Walt Disney's signature.
Yeah, I mean that's probably just how they wrote in those days. This is number 5, Paul Chadwick. And then this is yet another relaunch. Here's Darwin Cook. The aforementioned Darwin Cook did some issues of The Spirit.
Ah, yeah.
So yeah, he actually had a run on here, which, you know, you can see it's just very creative. Darwin Cook, so he had a bunch. That's great. So here's Mike Plug took over, and this is number 31. He was an artist in the 70s. I think he did like the horror books. All right, so that's yet another version of The Spirit, number 4. So
another Will Eisner.
Yeah, David Hine. They're just crediting Will Eisner. They're just by different creators.
Is Will Eisner the artist?
He's the artist and writer and creator of The Spirit.
So then what's the different creators?
These are just guys who are doing a tribute to him and to The Spirit.
Oh. Ah.
So this is Supergirl.
Oh, so they're giving him credit for coming up with The Spirit.
Right. So
okay.
It's his property.
It's Will Eisner's The Spirit.
Right. This is Supergirl by Jeff Loeb. This is All-Star Superman number 2, Grant Morrison. Superpowers, which was a series that Jack Kirby was involved with and other creators at DC. So they were able to do some cool stuff there. So there's a bunch of those. Anything Jack Kirby is always worth getting. And there's a bunch. There were a couple of those. Here's Alan Moore, Supreme. Awesome. Alan Moore's great. This is kind of a Superman clone character that Alan Moore made actually interesting. Instead of just being a simple Superman clone, he gave him a history and everything else, and it was cool. So here's more. A couple of those. Superman, that's Supreme. That's a new series, so I have those. There's Tales to Astonish. This was I believe this was written by Peter David.
Ooh, yeah, Hope Wasp and Hank Pym.
Yeah, this is a nice glossy, you know, square bound comic, so that's good. That's Team America, and there's some Thors in here for Walt Simonson and some Rons. Yeah, here's some new Thor. This is J. Michael Straczynski when Thor returned. This is Thor recreating Asgard. There's some cool stuff here. And this is Thor, Jane Foster Thor, so there's some of that. And then there's more of that. Here's some new Thor. Here's Thunderbolts, which there's a movie out right now. And the series is the pretty much the inspiration behind that. So I have a bunch of those. Thunderstrike, which was a character who was supposed to replace Thor. Eric Masterson, I believe was his name. And that didn't really pan out. They went back to the original. But Thunderstrike was still an interesting character. So that's it for that. And so that's a nice little trip through those books. And despite my oddity at the beginning of the video, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any interest in any of that or thought that was interesting, please let me know. Thank you.